So here are the past paper 12 markers for theme B. So you might want to pause the video here and just kind of identify some of the key themes that are emerging about what the style of questions are. The one thing that I have noticed was missing is actually questions about animals. So we'll come back to that later. But it just might be something that you want to focus on in your last minute revision, like the issues around the use of animals. So what I want you to do here is to please remember these key concepts for theme B because they can be applied to many different topics. So we have dominion, stewardship, sanctity of life, and quality of life. So dominion is the belief that humans have been given control or charge of the world. This can be seen from the Bible teaching rule over the birds of the air, fish of the sea, and every living creature. Then we have stewardship, which is the belief that humans have a duty given by God the Creator to look after the created world and all life within it, since it all belongs to God. And this can be seen from the Bible teaching, the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. Sanctity of life, of course, is the belief that life is sacred or special because it was created by God. So we're talking human life here, or because we are each unique individuals who are made in the image of God. And then quality of life, again applied to human beings, is the idea that there's a certain standard of health, comfort, and happiness that should be experienced by a person or group. Making sure that people have a good quality of life is linked to the teaching of Jesus in the Bible about being loving to each other. So let's have a look at this 4-marker about euthanasia. Again, like a model answer. And what I want you to note here is how I've used the concepts of the sanctity of life and quality of life principles to help me answer it. So one Christian belief about euthanasia is that it's always wrong based on the sanctity of life principle. This principle states that human life is sacred and should always be protected as it is special to God. Point and development made nice and easy because of my reference to the sanctity of life principle. And then the second religious belief, which contrasts, so note the use of the word contrasting in the start of my second little wee paragraph. A contrasting Christian belief about euthanasia is that it may sometimes be right based on the quality of life principle. This principle states that the kind of life a person is able to live must be taken into account. If they are in a lot of pain and want their suffering to end, then euthanasia could be right. A different question to look at for this topic, again quite a niche one, 2 contrasting religious beliefs about the use of animals. Again, note the pattern here in the use of the phrase contrasting in the second part and the fact that I've clearly referred to Christianity in both sections. So one Christian religious belief about the use of animals is that we can use them however we choose, such as by eating them or using them in medical research. This view is based on the belief in dominion. A contrasting Christian religious belief about the use of animals is that we need to be careful about how we use them, excuse my typos, because they are part of God's creation too. This view is based on the belief in stewardship. Now, as I mentioned, there's not been a 12-marker that's come up yet, as far as I'm aware, about the use of animals. So I've kind of generated one here, so human beings can use animals however they choose, just to give you an idea about how to tackle this type of question. So on the yes side, to agree with the statement, you could say that in the Bible, it clearly emphasizes that God made human beings in his image. Only humans are made this way, which suggests we're superior to animals. And we can therefore use animals however we choose to help make our lives better because we are a more important part of God's creation. Moving on from that, in the Bible it also states that God commanded the first human beings to rule over the birds of the air, the fish of the sea, and over every other living thing. This is seen as evidence that human beings have dominion over nature and therefore rule over it, which does suggest that human beings can use animals however they choose because we're in charge of them. This can include eating animals or using them in animal experiments, especially if the experiments are aiming to find cures for diseases that will help human beings. In terms of the no argument, so to disagree with the view that human beings can use animals however they choose, firstly, you could give a non-religious view. So some of the ways we treat animals, such as through intensive farming, are very damaging to the environment and contribute to climate change. And so you can argue that we can't use animals however we choose because we need to be thinking about the planet. We need to be trying to mitigate against climate change, and we have a wider responsibility that's sort of separate from religion. Going back to religious arguments, though, you can argue that humans actually have the responsibility of stewardship, which means that they need to protect the animals that God has created, because ultimately in the Bible it tells us that the earth is the Lord's and everything in it is too. Stewardship means that human beings can't use animals however they choose, and that maybe there should be some limits on how we treat animals to minimise their suffering, since they're part of God's creation too. Islam, of course, also teaches the importance of stewardship, states in the Quran, the scripture of which there is no doubt, that how we treat animals will be taken into account on the Day of Judgment, since all our actions are recorded in the Book of Deeds during our life. Of course, the Quran states, He is aware of whatever good you do.